the fifth element of the business model is the revenue streams. If you determine who to serve for, and then what could be your values to create, and then you choose the way to deliver those values to the customers in either through the hardware channel or the software customer interactions, and then you may generate some revenues in return for providing the services or selling the products to the customers. Okay. There are a lot of ways of generating the revenues. So out of a lot of the different selections, you may choose the best way as one of the business models. So the most ordinary way of charging the money is on a transaction basis. So per each transaction, you deliver product or the services and get the monies. But nowadays, subscription service is more popular to secure the customers as your core customers. So instead of just waiting for the customers to come to the channels to buy from time to time, once you make a subscription agreement with the customers, you may deliver the food, you may deliver the products or the services on a regular basis, or from time to time the customer wants. Okay, or you can just charge the money on a rental basis. Right now, a lot of the youngsters in their 20s regard highly on their experiences rather than ownership of a certain product. So, and also they cannot afford to buy all the things they want. So they simply rent the products and enjoy an experience for the time being, and then they return the products to the companies. So the business is one of the popular way of charging the monies. And also you can charge the money to the exclusive membership basis. So if you pay some fees in return for having the memberships, you can enjoy the unlimited or a certain the times without having to pay the monies per transaction. So if you are running the fitness center, and then you may offer the memberships to the customers, and the member of your fitness center may use all the facilities of the fitness center without having to pay the monies on every visit to the fitness center once you pay the membership fees. And one of the most popular way of generating the innovative way of the revenue stream is without charging any monies to the users, but instead charging the money from the sponsors who are interested in the people who used the services or the products of the company. In a lot of the online marketplace, or in a lot of the platform business where the traffic of the peoples are really important, and in that case the companies open their services free of charge, and by doing that they would like to attract as many customers or the users as possible. So for example, the search engine Google's Google does not charge any fees for the users of the Google search engine services. They simply provide the search services free of charge. If there are a lot of the users in the Google search services, and then Google may go to the companies, the sponsoring companies, saying that, okay, there are lots of the users in our platform than our competitors, and you may do some advertisement to our users in the platform. And in case there are a lot of users, the sponsoring companies may be willing to pay lots of the money as the advertisement monies. So that's how Google earns the monies. And also a lot of the online platform business providers are doing such revenue streams. So without charging any money could be one of the powerful revenue stream, one of the powerful business models. Okay, key resources. I have covered lots of the elements in generating the revenues that could be called as the front stage elements. For example, in running the restaurants, there should be halls where the customers can come to the restaurant and enjoy the food, and there should be the receptionist. Those are the areas where we can see in the restaurants. Those are the front areas. And also in the restaurant there should be some areas for cookings, right? Even though we cannot see where the cook is made. So those are the backstage element in terms of the 9 elements of the business model. The first backstage element is the key resources, which is quite a similar concept of we have already covered in the core competency analysis. In the class of the core competency, I emphasized that there are 4 different types of the resources, and then the company may assess which element is more important as core competencies, and in deciding the element for building the business model, also it's important to think about what are the key resources which underpins our business and which assets are essentials, whether it could be human resources, whether it could be the intangibles. And then the next element we have to think about is key activities. I have already introduced the concept of the value chain from the Michael Porter's. So out of a lot of activities that can be contributed to develop the values, from procurement, buying the raw materials, to the providing the after services. Out of a lot of different activities, you may choose which activities do you need to perform well in your business model, and what is the crucial element. And you may choose that element as your core and key activities, and then you can outsource all the other peripheral, the not important activities outside. Okay. And key partners, as I have emphasized, and you can outsource the not important activities and not important resources to outside, and that's something different from the traditional way of doing the businesses. In the traditional way of doing the businesses, the companies tend to have all the activities and all the resources internally, because by doing that they can control their businesses. But in the era of a lot of uncertainties, in order to reduce the potential risks, even for the big companies, it's better to retain only the key resources and the activities internally, and outsource all the other activities to the strategic partners might be one of the better options in reducing the risks. Okay, think about which partners and suppliers you may leverage in your business model, and who do you need to rely on. So those are all the backstage elements in preparing and creating the values which can be delivered to the customers. Key resources and key activities and key partners. And finally, in securing key resources and key when conducting the key activities, and also making a partnership with the key partners, those things may incur some monies, some costs. So you have to think about what could be the resulting cost structures. As I have said, and that there could be the cost could be categorized into two big items: fixed cost and variable cost. So whether you can decide the fixed cost may drive your cost, or you may decide the variable cost may drive the cost structures. But rule of the thumb is that reduce the weight of the fixed cost in order to avoid the potential risks, and try to convert a lot of fixed cost factors to variable costs as much as possible, and that's the way to minimize to mitigate the risks. So those are the entire picture of the 9 elements. So in building your business model, you have to think about those 9 elements. All the 7 elements except for the cost structures and revenue structures, those are the activities which can be contributed to the creation of the values or delivery of the values to the customers. And then once those activities are done quite well, you may generate the revenues, and at the same time you have to pay the bills in return for creating the values. Okay. And if you see carefully this entire snapshot of the business model, there is some gap in between. You may notice that there is a gap between the target customer and the value proposition. Nowhere else between target customer and value proposition there is a gap. So the gap is only in between target customer segment and value proposition. Why do you think there is a gap? Because customers, the needs and wants of the customers are changing every time, from time to time. So once they are satisfied with the value the companies provide, later on their needs and wants may be different from the today's. So there will be a chance that there would be a gap in between the values and then the customer needs and wants. So for the existing companies, they have to look at very carefully what could be the driving forces of the gaps and then the magnitude of the gaps, and try to fill out and try to minimize the gaps as much as possible. So a lot of the analysis we have done in building the business strategy is also related to understanding the customer's needs and wants. And also this gap provides the opportunity for the newcomers who want to enter into the new businesses, right? Okay, you may use the entire landscape of the business model, 9 elements of the business model, in sketching out your business models. Okay, so the essence of the business model is that the same technology, the same product or the service can have numerous business models. So those are just the assumption, one of the choices you made, and then you may have a lot of different versions of the business models, even though at the center of this slide there is one identical business ideas. Okay, even though with the identical ideas or the products or services, you may create a lot of different versions of the business models. And try sketching out alternative business models by asking yourselves. So those are the typical questions you may ask in choosing the right business model, whether you can generate revenues on a transactional basis or the recurring revenues. Recurring revenues can be generated when you choose the subscription models, right? And whether you want to serve the niche market or you want to serve the mass markets. Whether you want to focus on one customer segment or another segment, another customer segments, or whether you will have the revenue stream as paid model or the free models. Whether you can have the distributed channels, or you can have the centralized channels, or you can choose to have your business of manufacturing a product or providing a services. Okay, there are lots of different things you may choose, okay, in developing the business ideas. And then finally, you choose one of the one version of the business models as your final option of doing the businesses. Okay, so that's pretty much the second topic I covered. So under the topic of the business model, I introduced what's the definition of the business model and what are the 9 key elements of the business model. And I also explained what's the difference between business model and building the strategies. So business strategy, business model is much more fundamental decisions when you start a new business or the revisiting the current businesses. And then there are multiple ways in pursuing a lot of strategic options. So once you build your business model, and then once you set the targets and your goals, and you may think about a lot of different ways to achieve the targets as your business strategies. Okay. For the 14th classes, I covered a lot of the concepts related to the business model. Let me go back to the previous classes, what are the major topics we have covered so far? Okay, first, the concept of strategic thinking versus intuitive thinkings. Okay, that's in the first class of our lectures. And in the second class of the lectures, I introduced the concept of problem solving 7 steps developed by the McKinsey. And then in my third class, I explained what are the ways to develop the systematic approaches in building the business model. Okay, actually, in my third class, I introduced the concept of the MISI and issue trees. Okay, that was that. And in my fourth class, actually, I developed the five-step the systematic way of developing the business models, and that's something I introduced. And in the fifth class, which was about the industry analysis, I introduced the Michael Porter's the 5 forces model, and also the value chain analysis. And in the sixth class, which was about the competitor analysis, I introduced the concept of the radar screens in order to capture the potential competitor as one of our competitors we have to look at. And in the seventh class, we covered the needs and wants of the customers, and that's something we have covered. In the analysis of our internal core competencies, I introduced the concept from the C.K. Prahalad and the Gary Hamel, and also VRIO analysis, which we have done. And eventually we developed the strategy, the strategic direction in general, and then we chose a detailed strategy. And also we covered the 4P marketing mix. Okay. And finally, I introduced the concept from the Professor Cespedes about aligning the strategy and implementations. And then in the previous classes, I also introduced the concept of the digital. I introduced the concept of the SWOT, and then SWOT analysis and TOES mix in developing the strategies with 4 examples of the Coca-Cola, Kikkoman, and the Nissan, and finally the what was the final example? Yes, Nestle in developing the Nespresso capsule machine. And I introduced the digital transformation and the concept of the digital transformation and how to effectively rebuild our strategies in the digital transformation era. And early in this class, I also provided the 3 core elements of the key talents required in the 4th Industrial Revolution. And finally, I also introduced the concept of the business model and the 9 elements of the business model, which is the tool. The business model canvas is a tool to develop the effective business models. So I have covered the last of the concepts throughout the entire classes of the business model, and I think those concepts and my lectures might be quite useful for you to think about strategic way and building your business model in your area of the interest. And finally, especially when you think about setting up the startups, that could be quite useful thinking about the business model as well. Okay, I wish you a good luck and thank you very much for your listening the entire classes of the business model. Thank you very much. Bye bye.